I'll convene this regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. Today is November 8th, 2022. Mr. Mokrahajski, we have a pretty busy morning, which will include an executive session today. The executive session does need to be attended to this morning. So there's a possibility that during the executive session, we will stretch that session into the noon break, if we don't complete this morning's business on time. I'd like to direct everybody's attention to the screen on the wall to my left. And that is a live feed of Lane County elections. That is what is happening right now at Lane County elections. And it doesn't look like they're moving, but that is live. Morning
huddle is frozen. It looks like.
Oh, you know what? It may that our feed may be frozen, but if you watch it online, go to Lane County, www.lanecounty.org, and go to elections. You can watch this all day long, all night long. And it's kind of like watching the Mars rover until today. Today is when they find alien life on Mars. Mr. Mokrahajski, I think we'll switch that off once the meeting begins and go to our regular agenda on the meeting. So without further ado, I'll mention that Commissioner Bozievich is with us virtually, and Commissioner Berney will be with us on audio only. So by voice only, Commissioner Berney. So we will be in full attendance today. Ms. Mokrahajski, today, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. See none from the board, none from the screens. Then we'll move along to emergency business. Do we have any emergency business?
No.
None to attend to. Then directly into public comments. We'll be entertaining public comments. Those of you in Harris Hall will can step to the microphone, state your name when I call you, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. If you're in Harris Hall, you'll see 3 minutes on the screen to my left. And there'll be no pre-warning. Just keep an eye on the screen. And at 3 minutes, I'll ask you to conclude your discussion. That'll be followed by people who have signed up online. And the people online, if you're listening to me right now, there'll be no warning once again. And at 3 minutes, your mic will be silenced and we'll move along to the next speaker. So we'll entertain speakers in Harris Hall first, followed by speakers online. And then I'll invite anyone else in Harris Hall who may wish to step forward to speak. So we'll begin public comments. And I have the list in front of me. Only one person signed up in Harris Hall, and that is Richard Locke. Mr. Locke, will you step to the mic, state your name for the record, and keep an eye on the 3 minutes. It'll start once you start talking.
Do that. You're generous because the city only gives you 2.5. My name is Rich Locke. I am, first of all, a county resident in, I believe, the South County. I'm not really sure exactly who's my representative, but I am also a Ward 8 business owner. And I am a president and founder of the Eugene Business Alliance. We're about 200 businesses that have joined together to combat the effects of homelessness in front of our businesses. What I've noticed here, and I've been absent from coming to the commissioners meetings for the simple reason I've been focusing on the city because I think they're delinquent in most of the things that they do. But I do recognize after diving into the county's reports that we are severely underutilized in our managed services. We're running at about 25% underutilized in our the amount of people that are placed in housing and or managed services for overnight stays and such. So I will say that the only one actually in the alternative programs is our buddy Gabe Petzwich, which he is running over 100%. And across the board, most of them run in and around 75%. So I think there's an allowable amount of space there that is being allowed by you folks that could be capitalized on and people be placed off of the street into some type of shelter to where they can be safe and warm. So I do know that the qualifications in most cases keep these folks that are on the streets away from managed services because they don't qualify. They don't qualify because they have a pet or they have a drug habit or whatever it might, mentally ill. So we have a tendency as citizens to not pay any attention to that sector. I believe it's about 20% of the overall, and there's very few people, very few managed services in that, which equates to no help for those people. Also, those are the same people that are affecting all of us in business, camping in front of our businesses, creating messes, defecating, doing all the things that we know that they do. But there's really nothing that we can do because nobody wants them, right? So the state and county.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. I see no one else signed up in Harris Hall. So Ms. Jones, I'm going to ask you to manage an online queue. Do we have anyone signed up online to speak to the Board of County Commissioners?
Thank you, Chair Farr. At this time, if you did sign up to give public comment virtually, if you would raise your virtual hand, I will call on you for your public comment. I do see one person has signed up, but I'm not sure if they're just attending the meeting or if they're wanting to give public comment. One moment. I do not see any hands being raised, Chair Farr, so I will return the meeting to you.
That will conclude the online portion of the meeting, and I'll go back to Harris Hall. Anyone in Harris Hall who is not signed up who wishes to address the Board of County Commissioners this morning, you may do so now. I see none. We'll close the public comment session and open it up to the County Commissioner's response to public comments and or other issues or remonstrances. I'll look to the queue. As ever, Board, if you don't raise your hand, I'll go first. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Locke, for coming to speak to us. It sounds like you've been speaking a lot with the City of Eugene, and this was the first time speaking to us as a board, and I appreciate you coming in. If you didn't get to say everything that you wanted to say today, please feel free to write in to us. We read it. I know I read every single one that comes in. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that before you left.
Thank you for the ask, Commissioner Buck, but with a caveat, further from the board, I see none, and Commissioner Burney has not indicated. So I have a couple of things to say very, very quickly. First thing I'm going to mention is that behind you don't see any outside activity right now, but across High Street, you'll see the Lane County Farmers Market. It's a year-round farmers market that started this year, and by next spring it'll be in full swing. It's an indoor-outdoor facility that will be able to provide fresh farm goods all year round. It's a pretty wonderful thing. And on a sunnier day, on a nicer day, less dreary than this one, you'll see booths outside as well as inside. Nobody turned and learned. You got to turn and learn. That's not an option. Okay, good. Then the next thing I'll say is, Mr. Locke, thank you for talking today. I'd like to commend you on your personal stance. You've been very proactive in making suggestions. I walked on a jail tour with you, a tour of the Lane County Jail, which was at your request, and you found a few things that have helped you with some of your decision making down the road. And coming up, you and I will also have a navigation center tour in December. Look forward to that. So thank you for being here this morning, Mr. Locke. Then Jay, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking your way. I'll look at it a little more frequently. Commissioner Bozevich.
Thank you. And I want to thank Mr. Locke for coming in and for his continued advocacy for business owners and the combination of that advocacy with compassion for those that they're dealing with. I will mention that our navigation center is currently housing 10 animals. So we are have some programs that do take care of the animals as well as the people. And a lot of our programs, though, might be underutilized because they're funded through HUD, and we have to work our way down a wait list to get people into some of those programs. And it's a federal requirement. And sometimes it's difficult to get to the next person on the list because we can't get in contact with somebody. Quite often with this population, it's difficult to relocate them after they've been put on a wait list. So that's part of why you see some of that underutilization, and it's just a matter of trying to get people in and get them into those spots. I do realize, though, that there does need to be more spaces available for folks that have pets or are family groups. Sometimes is a really difficult population to serve. So we'll keep working very hard. And I appreciate that you're going to be touring the new navigation center with Commissioner Farr, or Chair Farr, here shortly. So thank you for your testimony.
And thank you, Commissioner Bozovich. Anyone else? I've just been informed that Commissioner Burney will be joining us a little bit later in the agenda. I will signal when Commissioner Burney will join us. So for the time being, Commissioner Burney is excused absent, and we have 4 commissioners present. Any further response or remonstrances? I see none. Then we'll move down the agenda, Mr. Mokrahysky, and into our consent calendar. We do have before us a consent calendar. Do I have a motion? Vice Chair.
Chair, I'll move passage of the consent calendar for Tuesday, November 8th, 2022.
Second.
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Buck, the November 8th, 2022 consent calendar. I'll mention this. Anybody watching online, if you click on view items under item 5, which is a consent calendar, click on view items, you'll see the information the Board of County Commissioners has considered before passing this consent calendar. It's all there, everything we've considered. It'll be passed with this single motion. Discussion to the motion. Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes 4-0 with Commissioner Burney excused absent. Item 6A today, Ms. Mokrahysky, is ordered 22-10-25-02 in the matter of approving a contract for life and disability insurance services and leave administration, including establishing an equivalent plan for paid leave in Oregon insurance for Lane County employees and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute the 3-year agreement with the potential for up to 2 one-year extensions. There were no abbreviations in the sentence. So I did a run-on sentence. I hate that. Sorry, but I said every word and I said it accurately. I'll bet you I got it right. Mr. Mokrahysky, I'll turn it over to you to introduce the panel.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We were before you 2 weeks ago on this item, had a lengthy conversation. You asked for some follow-up information, and so the team is back to answer some of those questions and seek action on this item today. So I'll turn it over. We have Alana Holmes, our Human Resources Director, Christine Moody, our Budget and Financial Planning Manager, and Crystal Tuller, our Benefits and Wellness Manager, here with us today, as well as a number of other folks available to answer questions. Alana?
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. Good morning. I think Steve did a really good overall briefing of why we're back here today. We had the 2 weeks to do the research, and I can tell you the staff spent a lot of time trying to research and provide the best information today. So we're very hopeful that the responses to the questions that you posed help drive towards a decision today. And I know what we thought we would do is start with the PowerPoint that just, we tried to capture the questions, and then Crystal will take the lead on the responses, and then we're also up here to chime in or answer questions as well.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes.
Thank you.
Give me just a minute. We got directions on how to do this earlier.
The hybrid meetings we're beginning to get it down very, very well at a time where we're going to go into less hybrid meetings. But it's a technology that we didn't anticipate having to develop as quickly as we did. But I want to out loud commend Diana Jones in particular for making sure we get through these meetings as well as we do. Okay.
Did it. There we go. That was the part I was most nervous about. All right. All right. So we'll start with the first question. Does the standard have experience administering paid leave to companies in any other state that offers paid leave? Yes, they do. Oregon will be the 6th state where the standard administers paid leave to customers and their employers, or their employees, excuse me. The standard won't have the same growing pains as the state will have because of this fact, we feel. And they state that their system is established to handle the new leave, as are their leave personnel. So our employees will get top-notch service when they call into the standard. Also, the standard has been actively preparing for Paid Leave Oregon. participating and attending all rule advisory committee meetings, provided input on rules, product standards, and best practices as well. And question, if Lane County were to contract with a third party, when could Lane County opt into the state plan? January 1st, 2025. If Lane County were to start with an equivalent plan for the period of September 3rd, 2023 through December 31st, 2024, we could go to the state plan on January 1st of 2025. The contract with the standard for PLO is for the period of September 2023 through, and it should be December 2024. I apologize. There is a typo on there, or wrong information, I should say. That is, well, the 3-year contract that we spoke to is for the other lines of service, our leaves, disability, life. The PLO contract is for just that 1 year. This next slide shows what our 5 county comparators are doing. You can see that 2 are going with an equivalent plan, 2 are going with a state plan, and 1 is undecided. Just some added information. One of the employers or the organizations that are going with the state plan, they originally they got a quote from their life and disability vendor that was going to double the PLO costs for them. So that's why they decided to go with the state plan. And then for the undecided organization, they actually have an RFP. So we put it in the undecided column because they're not sure what those bids will look like when they get those back, but we'll know later this month.
A question in between?
Could you, just for the public who might be watching, name those 5 comparator counties? Anyone on the?
Yes. I'm sorry about that. Clackamas County, Jackson County, Washington County, Deschutes County, and Marion County.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And a quick follow-up, which 2 did go with the state plan?
The 2 that went with the state is Deschutes and Washington.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Next question, why are we stating a November 30th deadline to file a declaration of intent? If Lane County goes with an equivalent plan per the state, we need to file that declaration of intent with the state by November 30th, 2022. If Lane County goes with the state plan, obviously there would be no deadline.
May I add a little bit to that? There was a question on some other timelines that you can see if you go to their website. And again, the focus of when we've shared that timeline of November 30th is because as we presented our memo and discussed this 2 weeks ago, we outlined options and our 2 recommendations. And the first recommendation was to go with the third-party administrator. So that was the tie-in to the November 30th date, just for clarity.
Thank you for that. And just for clarity also, you don't need to ask for permission to speak. You have the floor. I actually have to ask permission from you to speak. Continue.
Next question, will we be bound by our intent, and why the rush to make a decision? So the first is Lane County can rescind the declaration. So if we do a declaration of intent, we can rescind that if the choice is to go with the state eventually. I will say the other option too is that we just never put forth a plan. There is a little bit of a caveat with that, though. They have penalties and interest that would be due back to that January 1st, 2023 date if for some reason midstream we decide that we aren't going to go with the standard, for instance. Second bullet item, subject to bargaining. Obviously, we want to give enough time if we are going with the standard to do the bargaining fully. And so that was, obviously we need time for that. And then last bullet, May 1st, 2023, deadline to sign contract with the standard. In order for them to implement in September of next year, we've been given that date by the standard of May 1st to sign that contract.
I'm going to add a little bit to the why rush to the decision. I did speak to this at our presentation 2 weeks ago. It may feel that this is rushed, but again, the rulemaking and while it's not even all finalized yet, a good portion was finally finalized in October. And so, you know, we felt it was premature to move ahead of that schedule, but knowing our recommendation was to move with a third-party administrator with this November deadline, our timing, you know, there was a cadence to that we were trying to stick with. So just adding that.
And just a clarification, we would bargain regardless. So just wanted to add that clarification.
Very good.
Next, when would benefits be available and when would deductions begin if we go with a TPA? Benefits would begin on September 3rd, 2023 for employees, and the contributions will begin in January of 2023. Then
So, yes, I'm going to speak to this slide. You know, the question was, will the state run some, will the state-run program have some kind of patient or customer portal? You know, we discussed the service for employees and what type of access there would be. And just sharing that staff has reached out at least 3 times to the state right after our presentation 2 weeks ago. And to date, we have not had a single response by phone or by email, which we think is a little bit indicative of what we're foreshadowing just in that first year as every employer in the state that, you know, hits the threshold to qualify for this. There's a lot of employers across the state. And if they're not able, you know, we're trying to provide information to you and we can't get information from the state on something that is moving forward quickly. You know, we're concerned about that. The questions we did send them were, will we be able to contact the state on the employee's behalf? Will we have a dedicated team assigned to Lane County that we or our employees can reach out to? And will we have access to data regarding leaves taken by Lane County employees? Because we all know, even if we go with the state, employees naturally are going to come to HR first. That's just what they do. And so how can we navigate that or help them with that? And then as we looked a little bit more at the state's website regarding how as an employer we can assist, what we found is that they said, well, look at the FAQs for employees with the employee, but encourage them to reach out to the state via phone or email. So that's the best that we've been able to provide in the 2 weeks. Just wanted to share that because I know that was one of the questions asked. So I believe that covered the questions that we had documented. So that would close that portion of our time with you. I imagine you may have more questions or comments. So Chair, Commissioners, I'll turn it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes, and thank you, Ms. Toller, for the good presentation. We may call you back to some of those slides as we go through the presentation, so be prepared for that. I'll look to the queue for questions or comments. And I am seeing no one in the queue, so that ends this item. No, I'm kidding. All right. Vice Chair Trigger.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation and for all the work to do the follow-up. I very much appreciate it. Did a little bit of talking to some of my colleagues myself, some in our comparator counties, some in others, and it's a mixed bag, like everything. Not everybody agrees on the right way to do everything, but I mostly want to express my appreciation to staff for taking this item on and doing a little extra work. I think it's personally, for me, it's important because this is a policy that I worked on for many, many years, and just want to make it really clear. This was not something that the legislature sort of thought up, or that there were, this was very much a policy that has taken about 14 years based on grassroots efforts from affected workers who've experienced losing their jobs, losing their homes in some cases, because of the human things that happen to all of us. With surgeries and illness and bringing new children into their lives and workplaces, not accommodating them. So it's very important. It's very personally important to me. And it's important to me that we, and I think just generally for collegiality's sake, entity to entity, that we be respectful of the state division that has been tasked with a monumental lift to start a new program like this. So it's disappointing to me and it's frustrating to me that they're not readier to be more responsive. My hope is that running the program, sort of building that ship as they sail it. They get to hone it and fine tune it a bit, and we get to participate so that we can be part of living up to the full intent of the shared benefit, just like the unemployment benefits, just like Social Security, like all of these programs that everyone pays into for the greater public good. So that's my hope, and why I was especially interested in knowing for how long we're locked in. And I appreciate the clarification that this is a declaration of intent, just to keep the ball moving forward. So mostly want to express my appreciation and my clarification for folks that may not know the genesis of this law finally, not only passing, but being implemented, because implementation was delayed due to COVID and the overwhelm at many state offices, but particularly the employment division where this now lives. And finally, I want to appreciate and trust staff's experience with the standard and selecting them and making that shift from another business that we used to use that wasn't delivering the service that we expect and that our workers deserve. And just for clarification, because it was raised at our last conversation about this, I believe it was Commissioner Bozovich made the comment about the importance of going with a local. And yes, the standard has a headquarter in Portland, but a simple Google search shows they're actually, pardon me, owned by a company in Japan. A state entity doesn't get much more local than having your own state government run program. So just to that point, wanted to offer that up. So thank you again to staff. Very much appreciate your time and effort.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trieger. And I'll thank you for the work that you have put into this. I think you and I first talked about this as long as 8 years ago. No, longer ago than that, even more like 12 years ago. That's right. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with everything that my colleague has mentioned. You know, I have a healthy skepticism of state agencies these days, being one that's been working with now 11 state agencies in the aftermath of the Holiday Farm fire. And I've also had my fair share of working with insurance companies due to the same event. And I have to say, I have an even healthier skepticism of the insurance parties out there and available. I am frustrated with the insurance infiltration, I should say, into our public health system as a whole. And there are some decent issues with it as a policy level. I completely understand the reasoning staff has come and presented it and given your recommendation. I appreciate the fact that we as a county are trying very hard to give the service to our members of our staff in order to facilitate issues that can be quite challenging in the moment for people, especially if they're dealing with something that's very personal and very emotional at the time. And we want to be of service to our employees. In this case, I really feel like we don't know the whole picture yet in how this is going to be implemented. We learned a good deal a little bit ago, but there's so much still to learn. And that gives me pause. It is an extra cost to the county in order to go with standard in order to provide this additional level of service. And although I am very appreciative of moving many of the other services that we provide to a new insurance program, knowing we've had some troubles with the prior ones and employees have come to us with those concerns. And you've made the decision to move to standard for those. I think at a policy level for the PLO, I'm not there. And it's not because I don't appreciate everything that you've presented. I know where your heart is, and I know why you're giving the recommendation that you are. But at this point, knowing that I I have to weigh somewhat ambiguous options because we don't know everything that's going to come down in the organization and the implementation. I'd rather go with the state at this point. And, you know, we are down a commissioner this morning. And I have a feeling we might be split. If that truly is the case on this, if there is a possibility for Commissioner Burney to come back in later in the meeting, and we want to postpone this till then, I'm fine with that. But if that may not be a possibility, we don't know. I just want to publicly acknowledge, as Commissioner Traeger has, all your investigative work and all your research that you've done, as well as those employees that really have some very valid concerns, that I would, if we need to vote now, I will choose to go with the state option.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you, Chair. So, yeah, I did not exactly hear Commissioner Trigger broadcast how she would vote on this. So I don't know if we're split or not. I really support the idea of a one-stop place for employees to go. Heard some concerns from employees over the last couple of weeks of the fact that our short-term disability policy is actually a much better benefit than the paid leave Oregon in those cases where you qualify for that. And there's concern that they might have to take the paid leave Oregon and not our short-term disability, which, you know, many of these employees have made a part of their compensation through the collective bargaining process. And if we're in a one-stop shop where we can have an administrator say your best option is, you know, B out of A, B, and C for the situation you're in, I think that's a much better thing. To try and get that answer from the state and then a separate administrator for those two other programs is going to be much more difficult for employees in a difficult situation. And as it was presented today, this is not an irreversible decision at this point. And also, we have the ability to go with the state once they're up and running and maybe have worked all the kinks out as early as 2025. I feel like this is the best option for the customer service to our employees. And so therefore, I support moving ahead with the standard for all three services. So just want to, you know, think more about how are we serving our employees instead of, you know, and deal with that, and knowing that, you know, we can come back later and make a change. You know, if we find that states actually got their, you know, everything together, it's not going to be an issue. There won't be problems, you know, as we go through bargaining all this, there won't be problems with employees being forced to take paid leave Oregon versus our better short-term disability. You know, those sort of things, you know, we may know more about, you know, in the spring before we get to that May deadline. But we've got this, you know, notice of intent, which is a, you know, revocable deadline that we have to do. And I think we'd be wise to move ahead and provide that notice of intent, move ahead with negotiations with the standard while all this is being put in place. That, you know, that's where I am right now. And I think that's important to think about what's going to serve our employees best.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. I have a few things to say, but first I'll talk about the process. The process, our regular process is somebody will make a motion and somebody will second the motion. If there is no second, the motion dies for lack of second. I, as a chair, typically do not offer a second. So the motion and the second would need to come from among the three commissioners sitting beside me. Don't know how that would go. I have a few things to say, but I believe Commissioner Vice Chair Trigger has something to say. Can it wait till I talk a little bit?
Absolutely. Just a clarifying question.
And you may have an addendum to that clarifying question after you hear me speak. So, you know, I think the most important thing to me is that we don't have employees who are waiting for their benefits that they are due. You know, that's a lag in time between the time they become eligible for the benefit and the time they begin receiving the benefit. My question is, would there be any discernible difference between standard and the state regarding when people apply versus when they begin to receive their benefits? Now, I think I know the answer, but go ahead and tell me.
Chair Farr. So if I just want to make sure I'm understanding your question. You are asking, will there be a difference between the state and the standard on when employees would see payment? Is that?
Yes.
You know, I don't know the answer to that at this point.
That's what I thought.
There is rules already put forth by the state. Unfortunately, I don't have that in front of me right now to be able to rattle off what those rules are exactly. But, you know, if we went with the standard, it's an equivalent plan and they would have to uphold that same payment schedule that the state would have.
That's essentially what I expect you to say, which allows me to move forward with what I believe to be an educated speculation. And that's what you're going to hear from me right now is an educated speculation. I think that an insurance company has systems in place that they would probably apply, as you mentioned, a similar type of system to the new program that's going to be administered by them. That would be administered by them should this motion pass. And you know, the state. You've already mentioned, Ms. Holmes, that with the standard and with any insurance company that we work with, we have 24/7 access to questions through county employees, through staff. We can access the insurance. And we already know that that is not going to be the case with the state. We won't have 24/7. Typically, and once again, a speculation, but a fairly educated one, that the state would probably operate on Monday through Friday and probably operate on roughly business hours. So so if an employee has a glitch in their application, my speculation is that through an insurance company, until the state masters their program, and maybe even beyond that, with an insurance company, we'll be able to address any difficulties in the benefit starting. So in that case, the answer to my question is most likely an insurance company would be on a regular basis paying quicker than the state would. Maybe not 100% of the time, but more often than not. So that's the answer to my question on that one. My second question is regarding our confidence in the state, and I'll see if I can wiggle a question into this somehow. I love the state. I'm confident in the state. 20 years ago, I was a state rep, and I loved my time as a state rep. The state has changed since then. A number of things have happened that have given us experience with how quickly the state is able to adapt to new systems, present new systems, and make certain there are no difficulties in the delivery of the systems. Time and time again, whether it be with the exchange rollout, which was a monumental catastrophe, to distribution of some of the emergency monies that's been distributed and slowed down in more recent days. So the state, with great intent, absolutely with great intent, tries their hardest, but sometimes they aren't able to completely adhere to what we maybe should be able to expect from a service. Whereas with an insurance company, initially we would be able to demand it. In effect, we demand it. We can't demand of the state demands of us. We can demand of an insurance company. They can't demand anything of us. That's the difference there. So that being said, I agree, and this is where you may have an addendum to your comment, Vice Chair Trigger. I agree with what I think I heard Vice Chair Trigger say, that we would like to see the state work on the system and make certain that the system is fully functional in the state, because right now in this room, I count 19 Lane County employees, myself included. These 19 employees we are all entitled to first-rate service from the people who are delivering benefits that we have earned. And to me, I believe we can get that with what you present as option one. That's where I come on this, Vice Chair Trigger. And if I'm putting words into your mouth, take them right back out of mine, all right? But what I understand is that a year from now, we'll have a chance to reconsider the state, should we go with the standard insurance at this point in time. At that point, the state will have had a 1 year chance to work out any kinks in the system that there may happen to be. There may be zero. There may be fatal kinks. We don't know. It's speculation. I don't have an educated speculation on that one. Vice Chair Trigger.
Thank you, Chair. So to that, we would also have the option, should we go with the state now, to contract with the Standard or some other private insurance company a year or more in the future, right? Goes both ways. I think, just to pull it back even further, what's really frustrating and a shame is, we're the last developed nation in the world to not have a national program to, again, take care of people when the inevitable thing that happens to human beings happens to all of us or people that they care about. So we are sort of caught in this important moment in time in the trajectory of time around what is good policy and what is a workplace and who are the people that work for it and how do we care for them. The fundamental issue that came up at the last meeting that in particular Commissioner Buck and I both spoke to is the concern of the privatization and the profiting off of human suffering and people in their worst moments. And that is a fundamentally different motivation to provide a service, whether you're doing it as a public service, because you're a county or a state government tasked with doing so, or you are a company with folks who benefit financially. And so the motive, I completely understand all the concerns about customer service, but the motivation for potentially denying claims, which is what tends to slow down claims being processed, is very different with a state agency that's working to get its feet under it and figure out how to deliver its services than a profit-driven private insurance company. So that is my greatest concern. My question is, we've talked about this is subject to bargaining no matter what we go with. Can you just share with me a little bit, what are the elements, what is being bargained, and is it any different?
And pardon my interruption, Vice Chair Trigger. Commissioner Berning has joined us. All
Great.
5 commissioners are present.
Terrific.
Please.
Chair Farr, Vice Chair Trigger, thank you for that question. Actually, I believe we have an exec session later today on that topic. So we'll be able to answer more questions. But at this point in time, I think what's before all of the bargaining units is the contributions. And then at some point in the future we've had agreements to come back and look at impacts. So those are the 2 areas.
Thank you. And so those are the same regardless of whether we're, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trigger. Commissioner Berning, you're now with us, I believe, on audio. Is there, and I can't see if you have a hand raised for the queue. Do you have a hand raised?
No, but thank you, Chair, and if I do have a hand raised, I'll get on. I apologize. You all will have to look at me and I'll get on camera.
You can also give an audio cue on that, Commissioner Berning.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see no further discussion other than Commissioner Bozievich. I'm going to say one last thing before Commissioner Bozievich comes in. What I've stated is I care that the people who are entitled to the benefits receive the benefits as quickly as possible. And I do believe that that the state will have a chance to work things out if we allow them to work things out. I don't want to see employees waiting for benefits because of a glitch that the state nor us foresaw in their system. Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question for staff because the question of profit's been brought up. The state is requiring that the employer's employees start contributing into this pool in January, and benefits won't actually be available for quite some time until next September. So there's going to be a pot built up and will continue to be paid into this pot to pay benefits out of. my understanding is that pot does not become the ownership of it, of whoever we're contracting to administer the benefits. That's kind of like a standalone thing that whether you draw on it or not doesn't necessarily affect the how much profit a third party administrator would make. They're getting paid an administrative fee to administer this. Is that an incorrect understanding? Are they going to benefit by not paying out benefits? Or is this purely a contract where they administer out of a pool that our employees and Lane County have been contributing to? I want to understand, is there a profit motive in denying benefits under this plan?
And Commissioner Bozich, Ms. Moody, our budget manager, is with us. Ms. Moody?
Thank you, Chair Farr, Commissioner Bozovich. So as we shared 2 weeks ago, this plan that we're recommending is actually an insurance plan for the first year. So I think you had a couple statements in there, though, about like the pool of funds and whether it's owned. I mean, it is an insurance policy, so it is not the same as our health insurance where we are only paying an administrative fee. And we feel that because this plan is so new, that is the safest financial decision for the county. That is our recommendation, because then our charges are locked in, because we actually are paying a premium, not an amount that would fluctuate with claims. So we have asked the standard about that option. That option exists to only pay them an administrative fee and have it work a little more like health insurance. At this point, we don't have a reserve built up. The things that we had in place when we did that with health insurance don't exist yet. And we don't have any claims data, historical information. So that's the recommendation now. I think what we would look to is whether then we would be in a position to move into that self-funded, just receive a bill for the claims and pay them only to administer it. So that's definitely something that we're interested in the future. But just don't feel that we have enough data to say that that would be the right decision at this point.
Thank you.
Okay.
I continue if you have further questions.
Alana looks like she wanted to respond also.
Thank you, Chair Farr and Commissioner Bozovich. Not necessarily respond to that, but for me, just wanting to respond to a couple of things that I've heard and before you all move forward. One, Vice Chair Trieger, my comments in sharing our experience with the state absolutely was not meant in any way to be disrespectful. When I look at what the state overall as like administrative services and all of the agencies they have, there's a tremendous amount of work there. And certainly starting up something new like this is massive. It's big for us, but if you think of the state and what they're having to undertake, it is huge. I think coming out of COVID, there are challenges as all employers have, resiliency with the market that we're in. They have a high turnover. So, those are just challenges that they're facing as they start up. And so we recognize that this is a huge lift for everybody. No matter what decision is made today, I neglected to say earlier, we have a strong interest in being able to come back a year from now with the data and talk about what the experience is. That will inform all of us in a place, as you said, people are making decisions and not really knowing. We don't have a crystal ball yet, right, to know what's going to happen. But after a year, we'll have some data to bring back and talk about what that experience is on multiple levels, from a claims perspective, from an employee experience perspective. And I want to make sure that we've committed that to you, so we'll be marking our calendar for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Any further discussion? Then we have before us options. The staff is recommending option 1, which I'll read the brief on, and after which I'll call on Vice Chair Trieger for a motion if you're ready to make a motion. You're not ready to make a motion.
I have one more.
Oh, then okay, then I'll read the alternatives after your question. Vice Chair Trieger.
Just was opening the material, but since there was nothing new, I hadn't studied them. remind us again, please, choosing to go with the standard is actually a cost add over the state of a little over $111,000 to Lane County. Is that right?
When we start collecting in January to also have that buffer for future, yes, we plan to start collecting in January. So if you're looking at a full fiscal year at the rate that they've given us, yes.
So that $111,000, is that money spent and gone, or is that money that goes into a reserve?
It is in the first year not spent and gone.
Mhm.
So sorry for this to be a little confusing, but we just as a financial management standpoint, don't believe, like I said, we don't have the information. We don't believe we know more than the state does about what these claims might look like. So in order to, we do this with all of our benefits to make sure that we're not having huge spikes in costs. There's concern about the, what these claims look like, that we would have an internal reserve. So the money's not going out of the county.
Right.
But that we would have funding to be able to smooth rate increases, potentially go to the state, whatever that situation looks like in the future.
So I understand that mean that the money is not spent and gone. It's actually money that it's a prudent reserve that's being established by the county.
Yes, for this first year, correct.
Prudent reserve established by the county. Thank you. Further discussion, Commissioner Buck.
On that particular question and answer, so the additional $111,000 for this particular policy is not an administrative fee of any kind to the insurance provider? How are they getting paid for their work?
They're going to get an insured. I mean, we have a premium that we will pay them. And that premium starts around the time that the claims start, which is September. So that's the difference that I'm talking about with the state. We will be funding their pool starting January 1st. For us internally, we will build some reserve for what might come in rates and be funding our own reserve, as Chair Farr mentioned. So if you continued to go forward and that rate with the standard was a little bit higher than the state's rate, then yes, you would end up, over time paying the company a little bit more, but it depends. We also don't know what the state rate is going to do. They will adjust their rate going forward. They're not guaranteeing a 1% rate forever. They'll adjust it based on claims.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. And, one thing I'll say is that I have less skepticism about insurance companies than has been stated. And probably because I've been with the same insurance company now for 48 years. And they've always been there. And I've never paid anything other than my premiums. And I think that's kind of standard with insurance companies. You pay the premium. And whatever administrative cost is built into the premium. Yeah. Okay, then the recommendation by staff is alternative 1, which is award the contract to the standard for 3 years with the possibility of 2 1-year and 2 1-year extensions, and delegate authority to the county administrator to execute the agreement, etc. So the question then is, if just to make certain that I understand, if after 1 year we decide that we'd rather switch to the state, we can do that, even though it is a 3-year contract. But there is a fee that potentially would be paid in order to make that switch. Is that the way I understand that correctly?
You, Commissioner, or Chair Farr, I don't know if there's a fee to switch, but after a year, you're right. And that was stated on a slide. Our contract for the paid leave Oregon piece is from that September 2023 through December 2024.
So it's a little over a year. Even though the option says award the contract for 3 years.
Right. And I probably should have put in there to clarify the paid leave Oregon is for 1 year. I apologize.
Very good. And you did say that, but I didn't process it adequately. Ms. Moody.
Thank you, Chair Farr. I think where we mentioned a potential fee would be if there is a change before January 1st. Say we give a declaration, we decide in February or March that we're not going to go with the equivalent and we do want to join the state plan, the state would have fees and interest for us to then join them. So no.
January 1st of 2024.
2023. We have to start
Next year.
contributions.
Got,
to-
oh, okay,
Yes.
very good. Okay.
Yeah, does that,
That's right.
yeah.
Okay.
So no known fee because the contract is only for a year, that's the end of the standards contract. There'd be no
it'd be-
fee to get out.
More or less like a penalty for changing your mind. Okay, very good. Vice Chair Trigger.
The board order does state that it's 3 years.
Does, and Vice Chair Trigger, I should have clarified the 1 year for the paid leave Oregon. My apologies for not making that statement in that option.
Then, Ms. Mokoraysky, can you ascertain, does that need to be in the board order?
I think it's been stated, what was stated in the presentation, what's reflected in the board order is the contract with the standard is for 3 years, but understand that the contract with the standard includes a lot of different leave administration.
Mhm.
PLO is one piece of that. So what we're saying is after a year, we can decide to opt out. If you opt all in with the standard for all of our leaves, which is our recommendation for customer service. I mean, that's sort of the interesting piece of this, is that this is really about what do we want to do to provide the best service to our employees. So you have the recommendation on that. If we want to opt out of the PLO piece and opt into the state, we can do that after a year. But this is reflected as a 3-year agreement because it includes all of the various leaves. Again, that's the reason we're recommending the standard for the PLO, is because it's a one-stop shop for all services for employees.
Chair?
Mokoraysky, so
One other statement, Chair, sorry, I wanted to just make, and Christine can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a statement made that the cost of the standard contract related to the PLO is greater than the state cost. My understanding is that's not true in the first year. The cost of the state administration is actually greater in the first year because we're funding that administration be effective in January, because the actual administration of the program doesn't begin until September. And those premiums that Christine mentioned, those costs begin in September. So in the first year, the cost for the state is actually greater than the cost for the standard related to the PLO. So I just want to clarify that.
And I'm going to restate that in terms that I understand. That's a term I use often, that administrative costs actually begin with the state on January 1st. We will be paying administrative costs. Whereas with the standard, the cost will not start until September, and the administrative costs will be wrapped into the premium.
That's
No
correct.
additional administrative
And
costs.
that's correct. And what we're saying is what we would otherwise spend with the state effective January, those funds would go into this reserve to help create a buffer in the future. So there's still funds that we control versus contracting with the state where we pay them effectively.
That seems quite clear to me then, that we would actually be paying administration to the state, but we wouldn't to the standard. And that the $111,000 would be, once again, a prudent reserve that we would establish to create more or less a buffer once we do stop paying the earned employee leave. Okay, very
Chair?
good. Then, without further questions, I am prepared for a motion. Ms. Moody, do you have a statement you'd like to make? No, okay, then, I'm sorry, Commissioner Burney, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you, Chair.
I promised you I'd keep an eye on you, and I didn't. I broke my promise. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. I haven't been there to keep an eye on.
You're there twice, so.
So as I understand this, first of all, it's been very difficult for me not to think of PLO as the Palestinian Liberation Organization. I just want you to know these acronyms are getting, well, but I'm not, medically, I'm not supposed to be here even now. So I'm going to be leaving after item 9 of the agenda. Were I to stay, I would be making an agenda request, and I want to articulate that. So if any commissioners want to make it, and that is that if we do approve this, my agenda request would be that staff bring this back in November or whenever is appropriate in 2023, because we all know our plates are so full. Unless we make that as an agenda request, it'll just come and go and won't be noticed, and we'll be involved unless staff brings it to us for their reasons in a 3-year relationship. Does that make sense?
Let me restate that to make sure it does make sense. You likely will not be here by the time we come to agenda team request, but you would like to have one of us ask for staff to return in September or so to give us a report back on the state progress.
Yes, sir, if this passes, because I really agree with the comment Vice Chair Trieger made, which says it states in the order a specific 3-year length.
then I will say this, one of us will bring that forward if you're not with us.
Thank you, sir.
This passed.
Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion to the item, then I will look for a motion. And Vice Chair Trigger, would you like to be the one I look to? For the motion, then I'm gonna look for a motion. Commissioner Buck.
I will move the award of the contract to the standard for 3 years with a possibility of 2 one-year extensions and delegate authority to the county administrator to execute the agreement and extensions for life, leave, and disability. And employees can file for PLO through the state administered program.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Buck and seconded by Commissioner Burney. Make sure that I understand that. That's a deviant from the staff recommendation.
It's still the order 22-10-25.
It is. It is that order. Okay, very
But
good.
it is option number 2 in the agenda cover memo.
Very good. So for clarity, option number 2 is if you want to follow online, it is online. Gun view items. Option 2 is the same as option 1 with the exception that employees can file for PLA through the state administered program, which doesn't exist yet. Okay. All right. Moved and seconded. Discussion to the motion. Commissioner Bozovich.
Thank you, Chair. I'm disappointed that that's going to be the motion. I'm pretty sure it looks like, you know, by counting comments, this is what's going to pass. I feel it's a disservice to our employees. And I just want to maybe give a small history lesson as I cast my vote against this somewhat. The reason insurance companies became involved in health insurance was because the government took action to step between employees and employers back during World War II and put a wage freeze in place during a labor shortage for obvious reasons. And to get around not being able to give raises, companies started providing third-party health insurance. And that's how the insurance industry was born in the United States, through government intervention in the relationship between employees and employers. And this paid leave Oregon is one more step in that direction. And the fact that it may be better to be administered by a third party for at least a year or two while the state gets their act together. And the state has demonstrated an inability to get their act together over and over and over again, whether it's the fact that they sat on millions of dollars to modernize our unemployment insurance system and then ended up way behind the 8 ball when COVID hit, or it's the way they chose to implement some of the recovery funds by taking it all and having counties apply for grants from them to get recovery funds. It just has not been a good history in their ability to distribute benefits and funds. And that's why I support the idea of having a third-party administrator. Yes, eventually it may be beneficial to be in the state pool. But right now, I think there's a huge risk in going there. And the risk is our employees' ability to access their benefits. And I think it's sad, but I see this as being driven by an ideological issues and not necessarily looking for the best customer service for our employees.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozovich. Vice Chair Trigger.
Thank you, Chair. I'll give a little history lesson of my own specific to paid leave Oregon, which is that the reason there's even an option to opt out of the state and into a private insurance is because of lobbying by the insurance industry, who smelled opportunity when it was finally noted that this was finally going to pass in Oregon. This is part of a national effort to move us toward what we need, which is a federal paid leave program. We have OFLA, we have FEMLA. They are unpaid. This is paid leave. We need it nationally. And I think we have an important opportunity. I don't shy away from, Commissioner Bozovich can characterize it as ideological. We're all here with a set of values. we're all here to represent our workers and our constituents who also have a set of values. And I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trieger. And you know what? I'm not sure if it's ideology or whatever it is, but I'm most concerned about the fact that we don't know how well the state system will operate. I'm concerned about that, and we do have some history that causes me such concern. I want the best for the employees. That's not ideological, and if that's ideological, I'm not going to go to dinner with you. So that's not. We want the best for the employees. We want people to be able to access the program that they will be entitled to immediately. And I'm not convinced that the state will do that, not because they don't want to do it, but because they don't have the systems in place. And as you have mentioned, like everybody else, they are suffering from staffing issues. So the timeliness of the work isn't, the timeliness of their regular ongoing work isn't as well as it has been in the past, and as well as we can expect in the future. That's just the way it is. And I like quotes, and I've got a quote here, and it's by Robert Burns. "The best laid schemes of mice and men gang after glay, and leave us naught but grief and pain for promised joy." The state is promising us joy on this, but the best laid plans, as we've seen in the past, don't always go the way they hope. And because of that, I'm going to vote against the motion. I would vote in favor of revisiting as quickly as possible to take a look at the state program once it becomes established and once it does demonstrate that it is a working program. But in the meantime, I don't want to take that risk. There are now 21 employees in this room, not 19 anymore. There are 21 employees, but the 2015 FTEs that we do have in Lane County, I don't want to take that risk. So any further discussion to the motion?
Chair?
Commissioner Bernie.
I apologize for this sound behind me. I completely agree with the chair's concerns. I think we all want what's best for our employees. I truly don't believe that's a question of any commissioner here. I also really appreciate Commissioner Trieger's history with this issue. And I don't think we would be here having this discussion without it. And I just want to say that I find it disconcerting and a bit offensive for Commissioner Bozovich to say that this is ideological. That's like the pot calling the kettle black. If one was to ask me where ideological basis for things comes from, it would be of these 5 commissioners, that's where it would be. So anyway, I think we all care about our employees, and we're all doing the best we can with that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burnett. My apologies to those in the room who are here for our 10 o'clock time certain. We're already 8 minutes late. That clock is a minute fast, but we're still late. So at that point, with no further discussion, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion, which is to pass Order 2510-2502 with option 2 in the board package. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay.
Nay.
Passes 3-2 with Farr and Bozovich opposed. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation, and we'll keep an eye on this. I hope that nobody is left hanging. I hope nobody's left hanging on this.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Then back to our time certain. As we clear the room, I'll read what the time certain actually is. It's in the, boy, is this exciting. I have time to say that, don't I? Is in the matter of locating a mixed waste processing facility at Short Mountain Landfill. That's all there is. I wish there was more to say about it because I've been thinking about this for a long time. Many of us in this room have. Hurry up, I can't wait. Then in the position of the county administrator today, we have Director Dan Hurley. Dan is the director of our Lane County Public Works. And Mr. Hurley, I will turn this item over to you as a discussion in the matter of locating the mixed waste processing facility. Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Commissioners. I'm very excited too. I will say that. I'll try to contain my excitement. I've been looking forward to this day for probably more than 10 years to be able to show you what we can do with our waste that is much more modern and environmentally conscious. I started at the landfill almost 18 years ago. And if anyone hasn't been at the landfill, you should go tour the landfill. It's an amazing operation and it's impressive, but it's also appalling to be able to see the resources that are being buried, thrown away, causing greenhouse gases. I did the environmental monitoring at the landfill, measuring the methane coming off the landfill. I know the volume, it's appalling. We can do better. So we have an opportunity to do better here. We have a world-known firm, bulk handling system that produces technologies that can process waste and handle it better. We can do better with our resources. We can protect the environment. And I'll get off my soapbox here. I'm very excited. I will pass this to Jeff and they will wow you with what can be done. This is just a work session to show their proposal. We went through a competitive process. We'll be back in December as we're still working out the finances and trying to make this work for the community. But this is just to show the proposal for now.
And Director Hurley, pardon me if I'm jumping out of order here, but could you take a moment to introduce your panel?
Yes, so we are joined by Jeff Orlandini, who is the division manager for the Waste Management Division. My successor there, I started in that division. We have Eric Herbert, who is the president of Bulk Handling Systems, and Steve Miller, the CEO. And
I love your music.
Thank you. That's actually on our third slide.
All right. I did jump out of order. I'm sorry.
So I'll pass to Jeff now. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I too am very excited. If you would have asked me a year plus ago if I thought this might be feasible, I was pretty skeptical and have been extremely pleased with where we're at and that my skepticism was relatively unfounded there. So I will start off with just the first couple slides because the stars of the show are next to me and so excited to show what we are proposing to do here in Lane County. So these were our objectives. I'll dig a little deeper into the first two bullet points there. So as this body's aware, our solid waste management plan was adopted in 2019 and identified a target diversion rate of 63% with a goal to reach that by 2025. The most recent diversion rate from a couple years ago was 54%. And without a big lift, it's going to be very difficult for us to get to that 63%. And achieving or exceeding that goal will extend the life of the landfill. Currently, the life of Short Mountain Landfill is estimated at about 75 years, which is a very long time for a landfill. A lot of our neighboring landfills and landfills across the country don't have that kind of lifespan. But we also know that we have to continue building these very expensive landfill cells. So anything we can do to extend the life of this landfill and extend the life of the current landfill cells, it does mean that we can not worry about saving so much money so aggressively and quickly. So that we'll get into that next month. We currently landfill about 300,000 tons of waste per year, which is a number I want everyone to remember as Bulk Handling goes through their proposal for how much they will be processing and diverting. Approximately a third of our landfilled waste is organics, with about half of that being food waste, and the other half being yard debris, other wood materials. And so those are the, combined, that's the largest kind of single component of our waste stream. And it's been the one that our division's identified as trying to reduce greatly. It also creates the methane gas, right? So we know those organics are creating that. We definitely want to reduce the organic material going in, and we want to capture that gas quicker, more efficiently than we are now. And so lastly, I'd mention to these first couple points that the Lane County Climate Action Plan adopted in 2020 identified the landfill as the highest contributor of total greenhouse gas emissions from county operations. We account for about 77% of those. And so again, you have this organic material creating this landfill gas that we know we can create in a much more efficient, quick manner and reduce what's going in the landfill and slowly creating methane gas. The other points I think are pretty straightforward. We definitely are looking at how we can make this affordable to our ratepayers, knowing that, we charge a tip fee at Short Mountain, which then haulers have to then, charge to the ratepayers who have services. And then we also charge, obviously at our transfer stations. And then, we wanted to ensure we've learned the hard way in the past with sometimes buying into new and emerging technologies that maybe couldn't do what they promised to do. So we're excited to have a partner who we know has proven they can do what they're promising to do. And so I'll move on to the next slide, we'll talk about the project and then I'll turn it over. So we issued a request for proposals in March of 2022. We kept it relatively vague in terms of processing. We wanted to kind of get everything we could, look at everything we could in terms of how we could process our waste. And Bulk Handling Systems was selected to further explore building a waste processing facility after that competitive process. So we're very lucky that not only were they selected, but also they are in our backyard, based here in Eugene. So it's really a nice marriage of opportunity because it is a local organization that uses local builders and materials and can bring local jobs. And so with that, I'd love to hand it over to Steve Miller and Eric Herbert from BHS to take you through the rest of the presentation.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Pleasure to be here and talk with you. And our role is really to describe where we are today with the process. We've done a significant amount of design work, engineering work to lay out the system that we have here. We're going to walk you through it and talk about some of the elements that are contained. When you think about processing solid waste, in our mind, what we're really doing is taking this grouping of materials, the waste stream, and identifying each element and taking it to its highest and best use. And that's what the systems really do at their core. There's a process involved in doing that. It's one that we've deployed in a number of places. And so we're very confident in the process itself and the results that we get. But it's to take that fraction of material that is recoverable and recyclable that isn't segregated within the existing commingled single stream program and extract it and prepare it to go into its next stage of life and ultimately to replace some other material that would be a fossil fuel base, or if it's paper, would come from virgin wood. So that's what we're doing at the front end of the facility. We're also allowing for the processing of the single stream collection that occurs within the county. As I think you know, it all gets collected here and then processed outside the county. There just is not a viable system that is located here to process it. So we've included that in our scope, and really around the concept of thinking of this as a community resource, one that can take really all of the waste stream, address it, do it here, do it in the most responsible way. As Jeff mentioned, there's a significant amount of effort around the organic fraction. That's where methane comes from as organic material breaks down in the landfill. What we're doing is we're capturing that in a controlled way. So we're taking that material, we're processing it as it's received, and including that in the fundamental process such that any solids that come out of the system are pathogen-free, dried, and can be used beneficially. The part of this as well, and we'll have a couple of slides talking about what we do with the biogas generated. We have systems that we've built previously that take that gas, clean it, and where it's able to be used as a transportation fuel. And so we're creating a very significant quantity of renewable natural gas that can be put into the back of a truck or a bus or some other vehicle to be burned in a clean way and replacing a fossil fuel. And then finally, we have a visitor center, education center that we've included in the site. We really see this as a way to educate, whether it's schools and bringing tours through or local businesses or other interested parties, but we'll have that embedded in the facility itself. You've heard the expression, I'm sure, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I don't think I've heard that applied to videos, but with that, I thought you'd be interested in seeing this in more of a video format. This is the actual model that we've engineered and designed. You can see in the top right is the mixed waste facility and single stream processing center. On the left is the organics processing facility. We start at the tip floor. Waste is collected by vehicles and they will then come directly into the site. When we're dealing with mixed waste, we first go through a size reduction so that we can equalize material flows. The facility you're looking at is approximately the kind of flow that we would have here. We then go through and we extract some of the bags that aren't open. That's where all the stuff is contained. We do that robotically. This is a system that we were a first mover in our industry, and where we use artificial intelligence paired with robots to take that material. And you'll see a variety of samples throughout. We go through a series of screening steps to break down material by size. The fact is most of the organics is in that, say, 2 to 3 inch minus type size range. And so we're pulling that out and extracting it. By segregating material, we're then able to use some other techniques. In this case, we use air to separate the light fraction from the heavy material. When you think about what you put in your recycling bin, it's paper, it's plastic, it's aluminum, all of those are light. And we separate that out from the clothing or rocks or bowling balls or all the other stuff that goes in. We then use a series of screens to separate the 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional material. And now we're able to, that we've done this segregation, to employ technology. Part of that is to use optical sensing equipment. We're looking at material in the near infrared range of light, identifying it by its molecular content. So we can see a water bottle versus a milk jug versus a piece of paper, and identify it. And then we extract it using these techniques. Once we do that material, we go through a quality control step to be sure that no collateral type of material gets in. For this, we use, again, artificial intelligence, robotics. Here's video of a variety of systems that we've put into place all over the world at this moment. That includes all of the plastic fraction. You know that a lot of energy and effort is centered around plastic recovery, and we're really at the front end of that activity around the country and around the world. And our robotic units we're deploying in order to make sure that the material that we generate is clean and can be used to replace a virgin oil based product for the manufacture of new plastic. All of this is managed through a fully automated controls system that we design and build. As we take each material type, we store it for then baling and shipment to the final customer. So that kind of gives you an overview of the base system in terms of initial processing. We then take the organic fraction. Now it's segregated, and we're moving that into this anaerobic digestion process. Before we do that, we have a little bit of cleaning of that material. We want to take out any other plastics or contaminants from the stream, so that we're utilizing the capability of our anaerobic digestion system fully. We prepare the material, put it in bunkers, and this is a continuous flow process, one that we've deployed in a number of areas. All of that, by the way, is built here in Eugene at our facilities. We present the material, it goes into these tunnels, roughly a 20-day process to move from the front end to the back end. While that's occurring, we've taken out any oxygen or air at all. The solids transfer to gas. That gas is rich in methane. And that provides the core material that we then put through a cleaning process to strip out all the non-methane gases. And we now have a clean fuel equivalent to compressed natural gas, something you would find in the pipeline. And that can be then input into the system and utilized beneficially. Here, the solids you see we take through an automated system. We're really injecting air, drying the material, and preparing it then to be used back at the landfill as a cover or other use. We clean all the air. This is odor-free. Where we put these, we have these next to public parks. In one case in California, near an airport, there is no odor because we're taking all of the air within the system and we're filtering that so that we're able to operate around people, around cities. So that's the basic system that we've developed. Hopefully that made sense, was clear.
You just scratched the surface of what I want to see. So I'm looking forward to actually seeing one of these machines. I'll call it a machine in operation. And just a quick reminder before we move forward, you are a for-profit company.
We are.
And you sell product to governments to use your product.
We do.
The profit you generate pays wages. It also helps support the extensive list of vendors that provide you with the materials to make your machines. It also helps you to add to the research and development that has developed this kind of a product. Government didn't develop this, did they?
Absolutely.
That's what
yeah, there's and we'll talk about that a little more later, but we're as a company, we've really focused on local supply chain. We've done that throughout our history. Our main steel supplier is based here in Springfield, and one that we've had a multi-decade relationship with them, and so we're throughout this process, we've really focused on that, and we'll talk a little more about it.
But one thing before any further questions or further presentations, you said something, Mr. Miller, that I loved as time keeps on slipping. No, that's not. You said a lot of activities centered around plastics, and we are at the forefront of that activity worldwide. I love that. So, Director Hurley, anything else from the panel?
I mean, now you can see why I'm excited. We went and toured these facilities down in California. You know, this isn't some proposed technology that hasn't worked before. There are these working large facilities, much larger than the one we're proposing, operating in California and around the world, demonstrated effective, can get us to these high recovery rates over 90%. It's very exciting. We have this opportunity here to have a local firm. I think that's what the coolest thing about it is. We're not just pulling some firm from across the country. This is local here. And we talk about being a green community. Would love to see us demonstrate that and be at the cutting edge of how we handle our waste.
I love it. And as we go to the queue, I don't see Commissioner Burney's hand raised, but I anticipate that it is raised because Commissioner Burney's been studying this, and you actually have visited the plant, I believe, in San Jose. Commissioner Burney.
Oh, well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, but that's just the beginning of my engagement here. I would like to say that when Mr. Hurley and Jeff were nice enough to have me join, I had heard of bulk handling. I had heard of bulk handling because in many of my larger projects in private business in California, guess what there were? Different ports, different facilities. There's this thing of bulk handling. And when I chose to investigate back then, I was amazed to hear that this was a Lane County or Eugene based corporation. I was fascinated with their work there. You have to be, if my business was clean energy construction, and obviously there's a definite thing there. So when we came back, and after I saw their facility, I told Dan I wanted to meet the owner. I wanted to meet the president. I wanted to meet these guys. We did. So it's been my honor as not only liaison for the board to the Climate Action Committee, identifying what Lane County government's largest polluter is, having met people, bringing one of the few skills that I actually have, which is to make things happen. I've been pushing and pushing and pushing. A year ago, the board heard from Mr. Miller and Mr. Herbert. Now this has occurred, and frankly, I think we absolutely have to make it happen for our community to demonstrate that there are tremendous good paying jobs in this space to benefit Lane County from those jobs, from the decrease in carbon emission. And you know, one thing I've been saying all along, and I think this is simply one example, decreasing carbon emissions and being good citizens in that regard is pro-business. It's not anti-business. It creates jobs. It doesn't take jobs away. So I couldn't be more enthused. Thank you, Chair. I wasn't intending to speak at the beginning, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bernie. Further discussion. Commissioner Bozovich, I don't see you on the screen, so I'll call on Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. This is so exciting. And I know you're coming back to us in a few weeks to get a little more rubber meeting the road conversation. But just a couple of quick questions. Where is geographically, where's the nearest facility that you all have built? And are you the constructors and the operators? Talk to me a little bit about that relationship. And where's the nearest, geographically, where's the nearest facility to us?
Sure. We have a variety of facilities that we built here in the state of Oregon. The Garden Foundation would be one of the sites that we've done. We've done a couple of things in Portland, Marion County, and different kinds of systems. For this type of system, really the nearest would be in the Bay Area in California.
Yeah, so that's what we would be the first MRF.
Pardon me?
We would be the first MRF in Oregon if we built this at our landfill with our waste.
This would be the first large scale municipal solid waste MRF. Absolutely.
And you mentioned there's no odor to the operations. What about noise?
That's all contained.
It's contained. That's
yeah,
what I
it's
thought.
not. Everything's inside of a building. It's contained.
Great. And then my last question for today is the footprint. Is the notion that this would operate at the same facility at Short Mountain alongside? Would it reduce how much space is taken up by current operations and replace? How just physically lay out at the campus? How does that work, or do we know that yet?
Sure. No, we do. In fact, this is this layout that you see here on screen is the layout at Short Mountain. And we're now going through a front end process to further define it. We're going through a more detailed engineering, but it's going to look very similar. We've made a few changes, we think, for the better, but largely it will look like this, and this is the relative relationship.
I think to dig deeper, this would be in a location that is the location of one of our last landfill cells. So we're talking 50 years if we did nothing before we would need to access that space. So with this system, you know, that could be 75 years before we'd be, you know, thinking that we would need to encroach upon this area. So we chose that on purpose to ensure that it was not something that in 15 years we'd have to take down to build a landfill cell.
Great, thank you. That's helpful, and I'm looking forward to the next conversation in a few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Trieger. I have Commissioner Bozovich followed by Commissioner Buck.
Thank you. This is first I want to say I'm very impressed by the technology and the presentation, but we are talking about making a humongous investment of Lane County funds that affect our tipping fees, which affect every resident of the county. And there's illegal dumping versus tipping fees, you know, has impact. So this is a decision I think we need to not just be starstruck by the technology, but really think hard about this decision in a lot of ways. My understanding is this facility is going to be approximately 65 million. And then we also were talking about approximately 50 million to rebuild or relocate the Glenwood transfer site. Is that accurate?
No, we're at this moment, and in a couple of points, we're looking at a total investment of approximately 100 million in this. However, 70 million of that we'll be funding ourselves. And so we've organized this truly as a public-private partnership. That was the request by the county in the original RFP. And so we'll be providing those funds and won't be asking the county for them. There is site development work, construction of the buildings themselves, that would be the obligation of the county. And we have some other activity going on that we'd be glad to talk you through. I have some other slides prepared that we can walk through that if you'd like us to address that.
Okay, so I guess so we build the buildings and own the buildings. You guys provide the equipment and own all the equipment and benefit from any sale of product that's diverted. Is that an accurate statement also?
There's actually a sharing of the economic value of the products that are generated. And so once we reach a minimum level, then we have a sharing of revenue with the county, both on the value of the commodities and on the value of the biogas, of the renewable natural gas.
Yeah. I'll hope to look at that in a little bit more detail later. So one of the reasons I'm asking some of these questions is I understand, we've already got some diversion going by EchoSort and IP, but there's also a facility that is in existence now up there in Toledo, the Juneau facility. And I don't know, have we looked at the efficacy of trucking to that facility versus constructing our own? And there's a bunch of other questions I have concerning this, but I probably should have gotten to the staff ahead of time as I've been doing a little bit more research in the background. I just has there been any study about, does Lane County have to build and operate their own facility, or can we, get part of the capacity of some of these other facilities, and just what those impacts are?
I would say that in terms of Juneau, we reached out to them, let them know about the RFP. They did not respond to that RFP. And the conversations we've had with them have been that they really intended their Toledo site as more of a almost full-scale demonstration project. They had done a very, very small version of it. I believe in Georgia, they created this one with the intent that they could show, hopefully, its ability to work and then have communities purchase a Juneau system for that community. We do have some waste. I think it's about 100 tons a month from commercial that Sanipack is partnering with them and EcoSort on to send up to there to help them to demonstrate its ability. I think that trucking, upwards of even what Bulk Handling Systems is talking about, 200,000 tons of waste to that town. I don't know that from a climate standpoint and transport that would be the best option, although it is a very interesting new technology that, but again, they just did not respond to the RFP, and using our processes, we went with the best that we could from that process.
Yeah, I guess maybe to be clear, I think Sanipack and EchoSort responded to the RFP with plans to utilize some of the Juneau plant up there. Yeah, I just some questions around this whole thing. And I guess one of the questions I have, and maybe is because Bulk Handling is going to own the equipment, this isn't that big of a question, but as I look at the millions of dollars between this and the transfer site relocation, is what about the annual operating costs, maintenance, and any reserves that need to be set aside for renewal and replacement of equipment? As we are on election day and hoping to pass a parks levy to deal with deferred maintenance, understanding what that is, I think, is important for the county also. Or is that completely borne by Bulk Handling Systems?
It is. That's part of our proposal everything related to the facility at the initial stage and ongoing would be our cost.
We're looking to see how we can offset the capital construction costs as much as possible. So we're, exploring tax credits. There's a lot of new legislation, federal funding, potentially some state funding that we're exploring. And so we're just not ready to bring that all forward to see, what would the dollar per ton on the tipping fee. So we're still in negotiations with DHS. So those are great, valid questions. We're just not there yet where we can bring you answers. But those are the things we're considering as well.
Thank you, Director Hurley. Thank you.
I'll save any further questions for another round.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozovich. I have a quick question before I go to Commissioner Book. How many employees do you have locally in Lane County?
We have approximately 200 at our here in Eugene.
Okay.
And then when you think of us, though, I think it's reasonable to also include Far West Steel. That's our steel supplier. They have some number. I'm not sure I know the number. For this project, we calculate that when we take all the staff hours needed, both engineering and manufacturing, we're looking at about a 75 person addition for ourselves. And then we would have Far West Steel that would have more to add. The construction company that we've been working with is Chambers Construction. They're a Springfield-based firm. They'll also have a significant number of people that they'll be adding.
That is all excellent, all locally generated, locally owned. This question will come up, so I'm going to ask it. I'm going to preclude it. Are your employees unionized?
They're not.
Are not. Thank you. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really enthusiastic about this. I'm thrilled. I feel like we could have used this a decade ago. And I'm sure there are comparator counties that you have worked with or other areas that have had this over a decade ago. I've heard from other businesses, independent, not government, independent agencies that said, boy, if we had a system like Colorado has, we would have been able to do a lot more business and expand our business here in Lane County as well. And, I come from a family that's deeply invested and in not only recycling, but really diversion and recycling and reuse. And visited many of these locations. And what I appreciate is the technology advancement, because the hand picking is one of the least attractive jobs for somebody to have, and can have serious hazards. One question that I do have is, how do you deal with hazardous materials when they come in a stream that you may not know they're there? Because you don't want to, put people in a bad way, or you don't want to contaminate the whole process down the line. How do you deal with that?
Yes, thank you. It's a great question. Similar to what the landfill has to do is as the material is unloaded from the collection trucks, there is an inspection regime that goes on. And that's really the first line of catching that. As that's done, then there's protocols associated with the operations to isolate that material and then properly handle it and properly dispose of it. So that's the usual, standard operating procedure at a facility like this.
Yeah, I'll add that when you talk about hand pickers, you're right. It's a dangerous thing. It's there's so many things about it that that are not not positive, and so we've replaced a good number of that with, of course, robotic elements. One of the things that those hand pickers face are needle pricks, punctures from disposed of needles. It's a very common occurrence, one that isn't publicized very much, but happens all the time. And that's really one of the motivations that people have in deploying our robotic units.
I appreciate that. I think some people have held back on some systems due to the human hand picking and how it's just like the least desirable position, and you wonder, you know, how they do public health wise. So that advancement in this type of system is incredible. It seems like you have calculated that the output that you would receive would be able to ensure your operation is successful and can pay for itself. And then if there is any additional profit, there's some kind of share between the county and yourselves for the operation. We have in Lane County some real gems of agencies and businesses that are in the diversion and recycling business that are better known outside of Lane County or Oregon than locally. And for me, that's very sad because we have such great opportunities. And I find that in what you do as well. You do this elsewhere, but it's not in your hometown. And how great would it be for us to make, for us as Lane County to make a huge leap forward in our greenhouse gas emission efforts, our climate action plan goals, as well as just trying to extend the life of our landfill, which recently got filled up by a lot of unfortunate aftermath of natural disasters. And trying to divert and lengthen that is, to me, a win-win-win in everybody's mind. And it sounds like your deep investment in this program is a personal commitment, not only to what you do, but also in the world of recycling engineering. And I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, thank you. It's we do see it that way. It not only will this be the most advanced system, certainly in the state of Oregon, and so there's a term around the recycling community calling greenwashing, where people talk about all that they do, and when you look beneath, there's very little to show for it. And that goes on everywhere. Here's an opportunity, we believe, to have a system that defies all of that, that actually does these things, boots on the ground, every day, creating that environmental value, but economic value as well. And of course, for ourselves, we see it as a place, as really a show place type of facility. We'll have people from around the world visit. It's a way for us to show in real sense what our systems are able to do. And so we think that from the job creation perspective, we think those 75 persons are really only the beginning.
Thank you, Commissioner Buchan. Thank you. I have a few questions myself, but I'm gonna cut them short because we'll have a lot of time to discuss this, and we do have a full agenda subsequent to this. But wanted to mention, just say this right out loud: you're a superstar of manufacturing in our community. You're bringing jobs in. You're spreading jobs throughout the community using locally produced materials and our infrastructure to bring the materials into Lane County and bring raw materials into Lane County and turn them into finished products that would ship all over the world. That's what we hope for. That's what we expect. Regarding jobs and regarding hand picking, I was a hand picker. My first job in Lane County, I was a hand picker. I was on the bean belts at Agri-Pack in Junction City, picking the debris out of the beans when they first came off the truck. And it was hazardous as can be. Occasional mouse, occasional piece of farm machinery debris, but it wasn't as hazardous as the work that hand pickers in your line of business would do. But that being said, it was a union job, very well, and I was a hand picker. So, whenever we use robotics, we replace humans in a necessary fashion. Go back to my original statement: you're a superstar of manufacturing, and the fact is that even though I was did you say the lowest form of labor or the most menial form of labor? Yeah, in fact, I was picking the beans right off the truck. It paid well, and I was represented by a union. So moving down the road a little bit further, I recently toured with soon to be elected Commissioner David Lovall. We toured EcoSort in Glenwood. Wonderful facility, and some of the things look similar to what you're showing, but it's a lot different, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, we're talking about taking this to the next step where you're thoroughly sorting materials. And I love what you say about the dry product at the end being stable. And there's another term that you used. It was stable and odor free, I think is what you said. So.
Yeah, well, and that really relates to the organic fraction. And I want to, if I could just make a couple of points, you know, on the staffing, I would say for those hand pickers, the whole industry is faced with this problem. People are just not available to do that work. It's a terrible job. The turnover rates are extraordinarily high. And so once you do find someone, it's just so difficult to keep them there because it's, you know, it's not a job that people will stay and build a career at. On the other hand, we're not, I wouldn't say that we're eliminating those positions. Rather, we're replacing them with technicians, maintenance staff.
Exactly.
People who, you know, the equipment does not operate itself. It has to be maintained. And so we're really moving those people into something that's both higher paying and one that they can really build a career on.
Thank you. And I did anticipate that because you're a highly technological company. I mean, the things you do, the advanced research that you do, look at the products you're turning out. It's unbelievable. I'm excited to see you in operation. And with the Agripack as a bean picker, I did move on very quickly. I didn't want to stay as a bean picker. So pretty soon I became a tub pusher, and that was a much better job, I'll tell you what. And then I became the flow controller, which was, boy, I'll tell you, that was the king of all jobs in the bean factory. So I subsequently graduated I became the night janitor at the Trailways bus depot, not the upscale Greyhound bus depot, but the Trailways bus depot. So, but once again, I'm excited about the jobs you create, the product you create, and our partnership that you're describing very, very succinctly. So with that, please, Mr.
Well,
you promised to sing, I think.
Pardon me?
You promised you would sing for us.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to make the point related to EcoSort that we really see this as a collaborative effort. We've had discussions with them. They want to turn that facility into a construction and demolition processing center, and we believe we can collaborate with them to enable that. They're going to need more volume. We'll be providing some of that back to them. What they do now, though, they're really not processing that material at the site. It's just not large enough. They don't, you know, have enough hand pickers to really do that. So they do a preliminary step, and then they send it off to another facility out of the county. In this case, we'll be bringing it over to our facility, and so there's some, again, collaboration with them. We're not trying to replace what someone does. We're rather trying to fit into a system and just improve the total system.
And that was absolutely the impression that I got from them when they were talking. They were talking about a partnership, a collaboration of the type of work that you do. So excited about that. Mr. Hurley, Director Hurley, anything else?
Nothing more. We'll look forward to speaking on this topic again on
Chair.
And I'll turn to Commissioner Burney to give us a good wrap up.
Well, thank you very much. Actually, these were a few questions because I didn't anticipate the introduction. Steve and Eric, it seems to me that your technology and your processes are such, will they make it easier for me at my curbside to do recycling?
I think really nothing will change very much at the curb. You'll continue to take the recyclable products that are allowed under the program and put them into your bin, separated bin. We'll be processing the balance of material. At those moments where maybe somebody makes a mistake in what they put, which bin they put it in, it happens all the time. We'll be able to recover that material. And so, but really, I think nothing very much will change.
Okay. I would just like to also state that I think that if in fact this occurs, this will it not be not only a flagship for bulk handling and the county as a true joint partnership, but will it also not be a place that you now can bring your customers and potential customers from around the world to visit? And this is a two-part question, but would that not be the case, that this could be a biz dev tool for you?
Yes, will be, this will certainly be a showplace for us, and one where we'll be able to show the things that we talk about and be able to do it all in one.
And increase winter room stays. Yay.
Well, that was my point, Chair. That everything is connected to everything else, right? So I was going to say that would increase demand for rooms. It could increase demand for shoulder and winter rooms that we've been hearing much about. It could have implications that are, as I see it, significant, because really Mr. Miller and Mr. Herbert and their company are embodying what the county has embodied through community benefits, which is to keep as much work local, create as much jobs locally, get money moving through the local economy. So for so many reasons, I'm delighted that we are being presented with this as a potential opportunity moving forward. And I don't want to take away from that 70-30 split. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but to me, that is a very big deal. And public-private partnership can denote so many things. You have to get into the weeds of the specifics of the partnership. But I'm always looking at the money and where the money comes from. And that kind of financial partnership, again, is something that I think we will all be proud of as we move forward. Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, Stephen and Eric.
And thank you, Commissioner Burney, for the summary. Mr. Hurley, to you, Director Hurley.
That's a wrap. I think we'll be back December 8th. Hopefully we'll have more to talk about on the financial side. We'll be doing
once again, I am personally excited to hear more, see more, and you have more videos that you didn't show today that seen those. Yeah. So very good. Thank you very much.
Great.
Excellent
Thank you.
presentation.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
This is a story about Billy Sue and Bobby Joe. No, that's finish the sentence. Very good. Mr. Mokrzycki, we'll move down the order of the agenda, and item 8A is County Council, and we have with us AIC Sebastian Tapia. Mr. Tapia, any announcements?
Good morning, Chair Farr and Commissioners. Sebastian Tapia on behalf of County Council. We have no announcements today.
Thank you for being here to tell us that. Then we'll move along to 9A, which is the first reading and setting the second reading and public hearing of ordinance 2210 in the matter of amending chapter 8 of Lane Code to extend the term and franchise agreements with Comcast of Oregon for operation of a cable communication system to December 30th, 2024. Delegating and replacing in entirety Ordinance 21-09. And I'm not going to read anymore. It's all here in the verbiage. Mr. Mokrzycki, I'll turn it over to you to introduce once again, Manager.
Christine Moody is here, our budget and financial planning manager for this item. Thanks, Chair.
Well, again.
Hello. Thank you, Chair Farr, Commissioners. So bringing to you, as noted in the title, an extension to our Comcast franchise agreement. This will be the fourth time that I've come to you for an extension. Originally would have expired in 2018, but due to some federal legislation and litigation, it's been a more drawn out process for us this time. So this last year, where we had hoped to come to resolution on the few remaining items, unfortunately, the Comcast designee has been ill. And so that has resulted in the meetings being canceled. So he's had some medical conditions. So the hope is we're going with a 2-year to give us plenty of time to come to resolution on the remaining items. So this would extend the franchise through December 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Any questions from the board? I'm seeing none. Just a question that I asked you already, and I think the answer still is not as such. The MPC, Metropolitan Policy Commission, which I served on for years, also doubles in part as the Cable Commission. There's no action on the Cable Commission that's taken place to bring this forward, is there?
No, not to actually extend the franchise. We just give updates to them on the, the plan as we're moving forward to come up with the agreement. Yeah.
And once again, that is a subset of the MPC. Thank you very much. With no further questions, then I believe I will entertain a motion. Vice Chair Trigger.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I will move, let's see, I always get a little confused, first reading, second reading. So I will move that we adopt the first reading and set a second reading and public hearing for ordinance 22-10 in the matter of amending Chapter 8 of Lane Code to extend the term and franchise agreement with Comcast of Oregon 2 for operation of a cable communications system to December 30, 2024, deleting and replacing in its entirety ordinance 21-09, Lane Code 8.100.005, setting the second reading and public hearing for November 29, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. time certain.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I can.
Moved by Vice Chair Trigger. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Buck, who I heard first. So moved by Vice Chair Trigger and seconded by Commissioner Buck is the first reading and setting the second reading on ordinance 22-10. Discussion to the motion. I'm seeing none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Mr. Mokrzycki will move along down the agenda to item B, which is a discussion and action in the matter of awarding the design phase portion of the progressive design build contract to Lease Crutcher Lewis LLC for Lane Events multi-use facility and concurrently awarding the land use planning application contract to Citra Group and the PDB Consultant Support Services contacted Klosh Group. I stumbled over that, but it's all written right here, clear as can be, much clearer than I said it. So, Mr. Mokrzycki.
Thank you, Chair. We have our interim director of operations, Lauren Blythe, and our capital projects and planning manager, Sean Waite, with us. I will just say we've executed a number of contracts over the course of the past year to do the feasibility, the analysis and feasibility work that the board has asked related to this proposed multi-use ballpark at the Lane Event Center. This is the next phase of agreements that we're bringing before the board after you had a lengthy work session last week with Eugene Emeralds, with Major League Baseball, with county staff to talk about the vision for this particular project at that campus. The way that we've broken out these items, slightly unusual, I will say. Typically, we just have one order. It would have all of this wrapped into one, but given the public attention and interest in this project, we've separated out the three different components of this work into three different orders. So if you have specific questions or desires related to those, it's really clear the three different. So I'll just say real quick, high level, and Lauren and Sean can talk in more detail. The first is related to the design phase of work that needs to be done, particularly as it relates to the scoping and costing of the project. That's a critical step in this project to get further clarity around what it's going to take to build the facility necessary in this environment, and to get an idea both of the cost and the scope of that project. The second piece is related to land use planning work that needs to be done, and then the third piece is related to consultant support services from Klosh Group that Sean can talk more about. So I just want to say that those are the three broad areas. This work, it continues to advance. It does not finalize the project. It invests no resources in constructing any facilities, but it does advance the work related to furthering the scoping and costing of this potential project moving forward. So Lauren and then Sean.
And thank you. We will, board commissioners will have before us three orders. It's 2211-8-03, -04, and -05 when the time comes. Mr. Blythe.
Steve. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. So as Steve said, this is a follow-up on the Lane Event Center multi-use facility project with the EMS as an anchor tenant. As we go into, before we go into the details of the three orders that were mentioned, just a quick recap of where we are on the project. The board directed staff back in December of 21 to move forward with assessing the feasibility of constructing such a facility with the IMSS as an anchor tenant. The facility earlier this year, we identified the facility as a potential facility as being aligned with our strategic plan, particularly or specifically as under our vibrant communities strategic priority by adding economic and community benefits and additional services to the community. Since last December, staff have worked to complete due diligence activities to better understand the opportunities, risks, and impacts of constructing such a facility. These details were presented last week on November 1st in the in-depth board session, the work session we held with the board last Tuesday. So some key high-level points, a total of $17.5 million in upfront funding has been identified, 10 million from the IMSS and 7.5 million from the Oregon State Legislature. Transient lodging tax revenue is a potential source for debt service should we get to that point. Operational costs and responsibilities have not been established yet. We're still working on those. And there's been a wide range of cost estimates for the construction of such a facility. And a definitive cost estimate can really only be established by going to the marketplace and engaging with a qualified firm that has experience in constructing this type of facility. Sean's going to go into details about the procurement process and details of that. The team did issue a notice of intent to award to Lease Kircher Lewis. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sean to describe that.
Thank you, Lauren. Chair, commissioners. So this is a recap of kind of the procurement process. So back in June of 2022, the board approved an exemption for the competitive bidding process and approved us to move forward with a request for qualifications for a progressive design build contractor. A request for qualification solicitation went out in July of 2022. And the intent was to generate a short list of qualified proposers or firms. We ended up receiving 4 firms that responded to the request for qualifications. Upon scoring those 4 firms, it was apparent that the scores were so close that we went ahead and asked all of the respondents to provide or submit a response to the request for proposal. Concluding that process, we had a scoring process and we also had an interview process of the firms. And we ended up issuing a notice of intent to award to Lease Kircher Lewis back in September. And so from that time, we have been doing contract negotiations with that firm with the assistance of Klosch Group. And I'll go into a little bit more what Klosch Group's role is in this project and how they're assisting us. We did finalize those negotiations and presented to you today in one of the board orders. We are asking for approval for the design portion of that contract. The total contract award for the comprehensive design, which would include community and stakeholder engagement, full design, which will take about 6 months, is $1,934,750. However, today we are only asking for board's approval and authorization for $200,000 to move forward with phase 1 pre-construction work. That will include a draft site layout, so drawings about how this facility would fit in the location, a conceptual schedule, so the timeline from full design, which would also include community outreach, stakeholder outreach to construction completion. A budget summary, which will include what will $41 million build us, but then also enhancing that scope of what does emergency response capabilities include, including immediate occupancy. What does public amenities, what does that cost to add those elements? And then also one of the things that's been very unclear to us is the MLB requirements and how much that's going to cost. So this initial phase, and actually, we think it's going to be a little bit less than the $200,000, but we are asking for $200,000 to start that conceptual process. Lauren did mention also, we still have some due diligence to do. So there is another board order that's asking for approval to move forward with the land use application. That is additional phase 2 of the land use agreement that we've already performed phase 1, which was approved previously. And this is a requirement of moving forward. What this will include is more of the community and traffic impact. So we will be getting some more information about impacts to the community in the area by pursuing this contract. I'd like to spend a little bit of time on the Klosh Group. So the third board order is for a contract with Klosh Group for a little over $147,000. This facility is very different from anything that our capitals team has constructed. We are used to an office building, renovation of some sort of office building, clinic facilities. We have not constructed anything like this facility before. And while I'm going to say my staff is very competent in the work that they do, it really requires a skill set. And Klosh Group offers that. They have background in facilities such as this. They have comprehensive project management resources that can assist us with not only the conceptual design work, but also starting negotiations on the operations agreement, assisting Lane County staff in just the overall project management timeline. I really feel if we're going to move forward with the next phase, it is critical to approve the Klosh Group contract.
Excellent. Then at this point, should we take it one order at a time? Is that a good way to do it? And then we can discuss each order separately. Then let's begin, Vice Chair Trigger, with without any objection. Let's begin with the first order, 21-11-0803. Vice Chair Trigger.
Sure. Before I begin, did our administrator want to?
Well, just to say, it might be cleaner to just have the conversation about, because the work is obviously all tied together, and then take individual motions and action on those, just for your conversation. That might be
perfect. Then we'll back up on what I said and just have general discussion. Vice Chair Trigger.
Thank you, Chair. This is a big project. We've been working for a long time to arrive at a moment where we can potentially direct staff to get us the information where we can actually make a decision. No, it feels like we've made a lot of decisions. So I went ahead and organized my thoughts on paper. So I'm actually going to read something in service to making sure I hit the points that are important to me to hit at this point, because we've had a lot of conversations about this. And I find it really interesting that we're doing this on the heels of that presentation about the bulk handling systems and talking about public-private partnerships and ambitious infrastructure projects. And one of the things I want to say that I really appreciated about that one is that project is solving a problem Lane County has, that Lane County government has. This is a whole new ballgame, if you will. And so I can honestly say that I see so many upsides to this project. And I also really take seriously the concerns that have been raised from across the community about it as well. And my mind is not made up. The direction this board has given on several occasions over the past year has been to continue to take each next step in exploring the feasibility of this opportunity and this concept, period. And we simply have not had enough of the kind of detailed information we need to say no or to say yes. So the action we're considering today will go a long way toward helping us get to that point. And I want to share a few specific concerns. One is when this initially came to us as a concept, it was billed as a chance to generate revenue to improve other parts of the LEC campus. But as we've been making estimates and looking at numbers that we've been discussing more recently, I'm not hearing how this is going to be possible, particularly given that many on this board have indicated that they want to retain flexibility with the transient lodging and car rental taxes and not have that full amount go to any single project. And additionally, I recognize and appreciate Elmore Sports Group stepping up their 10 million into an upfront as opposed to expressed as a lease payment over 20 years. But that is the same dollar amount that we've heard all throughout. And so as a percentage of the overall cost of the project, when we're possibly anticipating a significantly higher cost to this project, that commitment looks really different when we think about it as a percentage of the project overall. No one wants to lose the M's. They're a beloved local institution that does a lot of good here. The team is riding high on recent successes now. Alan, you're a marvelous community-minded manager, but Alan is not the team, nor is he the team owner. In time, changes will inevitably happen. People will move on to new horizons, owners divest, players get traded, slumps happen, franchise agreements get renegotiated, conditions shift, sometimes for the better and sometimes not. And a stadium, for all of our commitment to multi-use, is still a stadium, structurally speaking, which is a fairly inflexible structure if or when a time comes with a need to repurpose it. So a project of this magnitude should not be rushed. We haven't rushed, we've been spending a lot of time on it, but now we're really feeling a tremendous time crunch. But that urgency is not our urgency. It's not driven by Lane County. It is entirely a problem only for the M's. I know we need to embark on this preliminary design work to arrive at a clearer sense of cost, which will allow staff to consider financing scenarios and bring those to us. And that financing will have to make sense for the organization, for our constituents. We have to stay true to statements we've consistently made that this project not take resources away from critical community needs and priorities. We're asking a lot of our internal team with a project of such scope and complexity as this, as has been indicated. I would like to know at some point how much we've already spent, both in real dollars, as well as an estimate of staff time that's been dedicated to this project so far. I am pleased that the materials present us with 3 separate orders with dollar amounts and caps clearly expressed in each of them. And I understand how each of these 3 pieces need to work together to get us to a point where we can make a sound decision. It's also important that the public can easily see and understand each action and every step we take along the way. So finally, I want to restate that I do see tremendous potential in this project. I appreciate staff, I appreciate our partners and the community who've been weighing in as we go. But for me, there are still far more questions than answers. So I think what we're considering doing today is an important step. I think it's the right thing to do and I support it. But as I've said before, we need to make sure our feet are firmly planted on the ground as we're taking these steps, that we keep our eyes and our minds wide open to what we might learn as a result. Thank you.
And thank you, Vice Chair Trieger. Further discussion? I am seeing no one in the queue. Good analysis, well stated. I think you stated some of the things that all of us have similar thoughts at some level. So without further discussion then, let's see. Oh, yep, there's a hand. Commissioner Bozievich.
Thank you. I just want to thank Vice Chair Trieger for that statement, because she covered many of my same thoughts about making sure we're doing the right things, staying true to what we've already said in public, understanding for the public that if we move forward with these 3 board orders, it's not an actual commitment to build a stadium at this point. I think if people watch the actual board meeting rather than just read the brief reports in the news about last week's meeting, they would hear some of the the detailed questions we're asking Major League Baseball about franchise agreements, how long they last, and renew, how they get renewed, and everything else, and the questions we're asking the ownership of the M's, that this is not an absolute done deal. And I really appreciate that what these 3 board orders do is help us get enough information to make a final decision. That all said, I do want to note for the record, I have worked with Rick Satry for many, many years as a civil engineer and prior to being a commissioner. I can't tell you how many projects we partnered on where he provided the land use and landscape architecture and we provided the civil engineering, or I hired him when I worked for eWeb to do that similar work. I haven't had that relationship for over 12 years, so I don't believe there's any conflict of interest in, or even, I probably didn't even need to declare this, but I just wanted to make sure folks knew that there is history with that particular individual and firm, but I don't feel that will color my decision on this particular item.
Thank you, Commissioner Bozievich. Further discussion? And Commissioner Burney.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank Vice Chair Trieger for articulating all of our concerns. I want to thank Commissioner Bozievich in that I was the guy that, I don't know if you remember, turned around with the mic in my hand and was trying to negotiate with Major League Baseball on behalf of us and the M's and timeframes. My feeling is very simple. It's simply this: we need to make a good decision, and moving forward on these items will get us information from which to make a good decision. Period. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burney. I see no further discussion. Then let's move forward with the orders. Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. I will move approval of Order 22-11-08-03 in the matter of awarding the design phase portion of the Progressive Design Build contract to Lease Crutcher Lewis LLC for the Lane Event Center multi-use facility and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute the contract.
Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Buck. Order 22-11-08-03. Discussion to the motion. I'm seeing none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Vice Chair Trieger.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move passage of Order 22-11-08-04 in the matter of awarding the land use planning application contract to the Satry Group, Inc. for the Lane Event Center multi-use facility project and delegating authority to the Lane County Administrator to execute the contract.
I'd say second, but I don't want to get in Commissioner Buck's way.
Oh, you just barely edged her out. So, by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Burney. Order 22-11-08-04. Discussion to the motion. I see none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Vice Chair Trieger.
Right, because good things come in threes. Order 22-11-08-05 in the matter of awarding a contract for consultant support services to Klosh Group, Inc. for the Lane Event Center multi-use facility project and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute the contract.
Second.
I was hoping that Commissioner Bozievich would second. Moved by Vice Chair Trieger and seconded by Commissioner Buck. Order 22-11-08-05. Discussion to the motion. See none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you so much for the presentation today. Once again, this is the next step along the way.
Thank you.
Mr. Mokrasi, as I look to you as we clear the room for announcements, please.
It is election day, what we call E0. So 2 weeks ago would have been E14. It's the countdown. So this is the election speak. If you want to be an election nerd, you call today E0. Otherwise, you can just call it election day. I'm going to wear my election sticker. We ran out of, apparently, I asked Lauren for a sticker. He said, we ran out of them. So I went deep in the files and I found myself a few of our I voted stickers. So anyone who did vote and didn't get a sticker, come see me. We can make that happen. So this will be the last update before the end of election day. This is as of the end of the day yesterday. So as of the end of the day yesterday, 126,401 ballots have been returned. That's a 45.9% return rate. 439,000 of those have already been counted. 1,641 have been challenged. And those voters, those 1,641 ballots that have been challenged, those voters will have until November 29th to cure the challenge. So oftentimes this is a signature, a question about a signature match, and then those individuals will have an opportunity to come in and rectify those issues. By this time, November 2018, 4 years ago, remember this, that was a presidential election, turnout was 49.74%. So we're just under that, but a really good turnout for a midterm November general election. The elections office is expecting a 70% turnout. If that is true, that means approximately 66,000 ballots will be received today. So let's walk through how this works. And now we start to get a little nerdy. And I know this is, I was listening to an election story on the radio this morning. There's a lot of process. I mean, in every state, of course, the election system is different. And this is where it starts to get sometimes confusing for residents and voters is that, but this process is really important because it's the process that is prescribed by state law for our election system. And it's the process that we have to follow. And we ensure that we follow to maintain election security and accountability there. So elections results will be posted by 8 p.m. tonight. So at 8 p.m. tonight online, we will post those results. And then again at 11 p.m. tonight, you can see the full results posting schedule at the Lane County Elections website. And that is lanecountyor.gov/elections. The schedule now includes a description that helps folks understand what they can expect to see within each posting and why each posting changes and what that change looks like and what it's due to. For example, the 8 p.m. posting will include all ballots processed through Monday, November 7th. So through yesterday. So we posted 8 p.m. tonight. That will be reflective of all the ballots that we collected as of the end of the day yesterday. The 11 p.m. posting tonight will then include all those ballots plus the ballots received on election morning. So this morning. Users will see a small break between postings from Thursday evening through Tuesday. So this coming Thursday in 2 days through Tuesday, November 15th. This is because the elections office is not working on Veterans Day. Veterans Day is a federal holiday, and we will be counting again on Tuesday, November 15th. So counting will continue, today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, and then break until Tuesday, November 15th, since that is the deadline to count postmarked ballots. We will post results every day that we count ballots. So every day that ballots are counted, we will post. So Lane County Elections is scheduled to post results a total of 9 times between today and November 15th. Washington County, by comparison, Washington County is scheduled to post results 6 times. Clackamas County is scheduled to post results a total of 5 times. Marion County is scheduled to post results a total of 7 times. Klamath County is scheduled to post results a total of 5 times. Only Multnomah County will post more than Lane County, and that's a total of 10 postings. And you can imagine the size of the Multnomah County elections team and their ability to do that. Party coordination, in addition to, I'm about halfway through so I hope you're comfortable. In addition to conducting election activities, the county clerk has been busy responding to letters from the Lane County Republican Party regarding address canvassing and a grant from 2020. So we've had a number of public records requests that we have responded to and continue to respond to. Ballot box collection and observation. The ballot box collection process has been overhauled to improve security and increase transparency. New transparent totes. So think about a tote bag that is clear and see-through. These are new transparent totes are sealed with uniquely numbered security seals, and the seal numbers are entered onto a chain of custody log and signed by bipartisan collection teams. This makes sense? Upon arrival of the transparent totes, when they arrive, so they're collected at the ballot boxes, sealed, signed by a bipartisan team, and then delivered to the elections office. Upon arrival of the transparent totes at elections office, a bipartisan team verifies that the seals are the same as affixed when they were collected at the ballot box and completes the chain of custody log. Okay, and then we keep a log of all of this. The county clerk is working with majority parties to ensure They understand the rules related to the observation of ballot boxes. There are rules that exist under state law for observations, and the ballot collection process to ensure the 8 p.m. ballot collection process goes smoothly. Excuse me. We are expecting observation at drop boxes and caravans to follow ballot collection teams from the drop boxes to the election office. The county clerk is urging voters not to wait. Don't wait until 7:59. If the clock strikes 8, you are too late. That's the rhyme. If the clock strikes 8, you're too late. Voters must be in line by 7:59. So I know you heard, I think Dina Dawson, our new county clerk, said it's brought tears to her eyes when she's been at a ballot box and someone shows up at 8 or 8.00.001, and we have to say, sorry, we can't take it, but the line has to be drawn somewhere. So don't wait until 8 o'clock because you're too late. You have to be in line 7:59 to drop off a ballot at a drop box or at the elections office. Finally, live streaming and observation. This has been really cool and fun. Thank you, Chair, for showing and calling out the live stream today. We've received a lot of comments from people who are very excited about the ability, the transparency with which they can watch this process. A press release about live stream and the new 8-step process has increased YouTube live stream viewership. This is cool. So the cool thing is, you know, if we care about elections, which we do, all of us, we care about the foundation of our democracy. We want people to understand the process. There's increased visibility in the process that people now have. And that's a really good thing. The YouTube page has 35 subscribers, and there were 731 views as of 6 a.m. Monday, so 6 a.m. yesterday. The average viewer watches for 16 minutes and 19 seconds. As of yesterday, the election office has hosted 21 in-person observers. And finally, given the expected tight margin in the contest for the office of U.S. Representative from the 4th Congressional District of Oregon, the Committee on House Administration has deployed 2 official congressional observers in Lane County and other metro areas. The purpose of the observers is solely to gather information with respect to the election, should the election later be contested in the House of Representatives. So that's the elections update. I think that was enough. So any questions, please let us know.
I already used my, I didn't catch that, say it again, joke, so I won't use it again. So any questions or comments from Ms. Murkowski? Commissioner Buck?
I just wanted to clarify, you mentioned in the beginning, you or our election clerk more specifically expects a 77% turnout?
70%, 70%, sorry.
Okay, well, darn.
70.
To the other 30% out there, please vote before 8 o'clock.
All right. I'm watching the Mars rover.
It's not what you
Vice Chair Trigger.
Thank you, Chair. Following up on that, if I understood you, the postings at 8 p.m. tonight are ballots that have been returned as of the end of day yesterday. And so if the projections for turnout are right, a little over 60,000 ballots will be added to that count for tomorrow's posting. Is that right?
No, part of that would be for today, as I understand.
So some of the 11 p.m. posting will include ballots collected and counted today.
Correct.
Right. Okay, great.
And there's just, so understand, I know this is oftentimes a question like, well, you have the ballot. Why can't you count the ballot? Well, there's a process.
Yeah.
The reason we're able, and you know that, but I want to explain for others watching that the reason that, it does take some time, and that there's a transparency around opening the ballot, first verifying the signature, that when you sign, does that match or is that contested, then opening it, and then running it through the system. So that process that requires other people to observe and verify certain things takes some time. So that is my understanding, that the 11 p.m. posting will likely include ballots received on election morning.
Great, thank you. And we've got the live stream back up again on the screen. Finally, I just want to shout out huge appreciation to our new clerk. These are some phenomenal changes in a short amount of time. She only arrived here a few months ago, and so I'm just so pleased and so grateful and so impressed, because when she came to present to us and called herself an elections nerd, and we talked about the definition of nerd is somebody who's really interested in the why, not just how something works or what we're doing, but why we're doing it. And to me, that why helps everyone, not just election nerds, understand the process and why it matters. And understanding leads to trust. And I think where we are right now is at a place of mistrust in the process of elections like we've never seen. And so everything she is doing to engender trust and have that kind of transparency and just help people understand the work that goes into, as you said, deconstructing the ballots, checking the signatures, tabulating the ballots, reporting. It's just phenomenal. And the last thing I will say is, for anyone out there, when you mentioned the challenge ballots and them needing to be cured, that is standard language. I have had a challenged ballot because I couldn't remember whether I used my middle name or middle initial or none. And so my signature didn't match. I got a letter. I went down to elections and cured it, corrected it, easy peasy. So those 1,641 challenged ballots that you mentioned, I just urge folks, there's nothing red flaggy about that. It's just part of the process of having good, integrous, transparent process, and you have a chance to fix that and make your vote count. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Mokraski. We do have need of executive session, which will run into the noon hour today for as much time, as long as we continue this conversation. But Ms. Mokraski, would it be okay to revisit this conversation a little bit at the end of the meeting today, at the end of the afternoon session, just to see if there's any updates, see if, and pull up the live feed, because I would expect there's going to be a little bit more activity than we see right now, even by 3 o'clock, 3:30 this afternoon.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right on. I have my I voted sticker. Mine says I voted early, but I've scratched out the early part, but I have voted. So it's on. Very good. Then at this point, then to the board, I will be moving into executive session. At the sound of my gavel, we will reconvene in a remote executive session, each in our own offices, and we'll reconvene at that clock on the wall says is a minute fast. Let's make it very, very fast. Let's reconvene no later than 11:45. Executive session in our own offices. The Board of County Commissioners will meet in executive session to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. The executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192-6602D, which allows the Board of Commissioners to meet in executive session for the purposes listed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in the executive session. We reserve the right to come back out into the public session should the need arise. At the sound of my gavel, will be recessed from the Board of County Commissioners and reconvene in executive session remote. We will reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners at 1:30 in Harris Hall.